Howdy, world culture students. Here to talk a little bit about rivers and the climate in India, especially the monsoons. So let's take a look at some stuff related to that. Okay, here we've got that satellite photo of the Indian subcontinent, and we're going to look at the major rivers here in the northern part of the region. There are plenty of minor rivers, relatively minor rivers, that flow off of the Ghats or the Deccan Plateau or one of these regions down here. But the three most important rivers of the subcontinent are the Indus, right about here, and the Ganges, which is here roughly, and the Brahmaputra, which is here approximately. And you'll notice that all of these arise from either the Tibetan Plateau or the Himalaya Mountains here in the north. So here is a map of the Indus River system. And obviously there's a bunch of rivers that flow into the Indus. The Indus itself is this one right here. And it is mostly in Pakistan, running down the center of Pakistan. And you hopefully recall that it was here in the Indus River area that the first civilization of the Indian subcontinent arose. Then we've got the Ganges and the Brahmaputra, and these kind of go together because they flow together towards their mouths here at the Bay of Bengal. So there are basically two ways that a large river can flow to the sea. It can flow into the sea as an estuary, where it's a wide mouth with a massive discharge of water, or it could divide up into a bunch of little branches that kind of trickle into the sea individually. And that's what happens here with the Ganges and Brahmaputra. So the Ganges arises, let's see, I think this one here is the Ganges, and a bunch of other rivers flow into it, of course. So Ganges, Ganges, Ganges. And then the Brahmaputra is mostly in Tibet, actually. Starting up here and then taking a hairpin curve right here down into eastern India and then down into Bangladesh, flowing into or joining the Ganges River and forming part of the same delta. And I just love the name of the place here where the Ganges and Brahmaputra and their little branches all flow into the Bay of Bengal. Notice it's called the mouths of the Ganges. And I really like that because what that makes me think of is some kind of creature called the Ganges that has a bunch of mouths like kind of like that. Anyways, and you know, of course that's not what it is, but I always think of that and it amuses me, but I'm easily amused. So those are the three most important rivers of the Indian subcontinent. Now let's talk a little bit about the climate. And you may recall that the Indian subcontinent experiences, for the most part, in most of the area, 3 seasons: a hot and dry season, a rainy season, and a cool season. Here's a picture of what it looks like in the dry season. If I remember correctly, this picture is from the Western Ghats, and it's taken during the month of May, if I remember correctly. This would be towards the end of the hot, dry season. So it's May, you're in the Western Ghats, and yeah, it looks kind of dry. And this is kind of neat. This shows the exact same place about 3 months later, I think it is, in August, if I remember correctly. And you'll notice it's greened up quite a bit. The rains came and allowed a bunch of plants to grow and make stuff nice and green. So yay. Now, the rains are mostly brought by what's called the monsoon. And here's a picture of the monsoon coming in. The monsoon is actually a wind. People often use the word monsoon to refer to some kind of rainstorm. That is not correct. The monsoon is a wind that during some parts of the year brings a rainstorm. During other parts of the year, the monsoon is dry. It's a dry wind. But we often think of it as the rain-bringing wind, but it's not necessarily that. So you can see here the winds are blowing in off the Indian Ocean. This particular photo is taken from an area down at the very tip of the Indian subcontinent in the south. So I would imagine we're probably looking towards the south, probably looking towards the southwest in this picture here, for reasons that you'll probably see in 1 or 2 slides from here. So we're looking down towards the Indian Ocean, and here come the moisture-laden clouds that the wind is blowing in from the Indian Ocean, and it's about to dump rain on this area here. And this map shows kind of how that happens. So the way the seasons work in most of the Indian subcontinent is during roughly the first half of the year, approximately, the sun beats down on the subcontinent here, makes it nice and warm, and the monsoons aren't really blowing, but the sun is beating down, and with time, that creates an area of low pressure because the land is warmed, the air is warmed, the air over this warm land expands, so the air pressure is lower. That means that air from the Indian Ocean is going to come in to fill that low pressure area. And the earliest monsoons, generally speaking, arrive in the subcontinent around the 1st of June. And I don't know how well you can see it, but on this map here, the different colors represent different arrival dates for the summer monsoons. This is the wet season monsoons. So this color here goes with an arrival date of June 1st, the earliest monsoons that come, and then down through the months of June and July, then these wet monsoon winds arrive at different parts of the subcontinent, bringing rain. And that's great for a couple of reasons. For one thing, it's been hot for a few months by this time, and people, generally speaking, are very, very glad when the monsoons come and bring rain to cool things off just a little bit. It's still pretty hot, but the rain helps make things more bearable. So they're happy about that. And they're also happy because the rain comes and waters the crops so that they can grow, so that they can actually have food to eat, which is always a nice thing. If the timing is off for the monsoons, if the monsoons, especially if they arrive a little bit later than normal, that can be disastrous for Indian agriculture because they've made their plans and planted their crops based on the normal timing of the monsoons. And if the monsoons don't come on time, then they don't arrive in time to water the crops during the crucial life cycles of the plants. And so the plants don't grow right and they don't produce food, and yeah, that's not good. So we've got the monsoons coming from the Indian Ocean, bringing rain. Yay! Then, as the year advances and it gets to be towards winter, the sun is not heating the land as much. So the land is cooler than it used to be. The air over that cool land condenses, and that denser air then starts to blow outward towards the lower pressure areas on the Indian Ocean. And that extends all the way up into the area north of the subcontinent, up into Central Asia and Tibet. So we end up with, during the last part of the calendar year, we end up with cold air from the north blowing down. That's what you see here. The cold air blows down from the north, and most of the subcontinent is close enough to the equator that it doesn't truly get cold the same way it does in our climate here in Pennsylvania, for example, but it's definitely cooler. So that's going to be the cool, dry season. And it's a dry season because it's coming from this big land area. So air that comes from land is not going to be so wet as air that's coming from the ocean, land that's coming from the ocean, right? Anyways, this air that's coming from the ocean. So air comes from the ocean, that's wet. Air that comes from the land, that's dry. So the winter monsoon is a dry monsoon. And that's the monsoon cycle. It has a tremendous impact on India's climate. And one other thing I want you to notice about this map here, notice that the northwestern part of the subcontinent is largely missed by the monsoon, or by the summer monsoon, I should say, the wet monsoon. So down here, the wet air blows in from the Indian Ocean, dumps a bunch of rain, but because of the way the winds blow in from the ocean, this whole area here, northwestern India and much of Pakistan, gets almost entirely missed by these wet summer monsoons. And that's why, if you look at the satellite photo again, that's why this area here looks so much drier than the rest of the subcontinent. So most of the subcontinent, you can definitely see plenty of green plants growing. Here, not so much, because they are missing out on that summer monsoon. So agriculture in this area here is going to depend a lot more on irrigation from the Indus River system, which is one reason why that was the area where the first civilizations in India developed. Well, that's it for today. Remember to like and subscribe and follow me on InstaSnap. See ya!